Now 250,000. Now, but to get 275. High, but to get 275. 3. Now 300,000. Now 3 1/4. 325. High, but to get 3 1/4. But to get 325. Now half. Now, but to get 300. And hello from Dallas, Texas. It's the Mike McGavel Jones Show, coming live from Lincoln Center in the center point of Dallas on the north side of town. And we're right here at Lincoln Center, right off the tollway and the LBJ Freeway. And we're excited today to have Cody Shelley from outside of Tulsa, Oklahoma, our new World Auto Auctioneer Champion. And good morning, Cody.
Good morning, Mike. Thanks for having me.
You bet. You bet. For those of the folks out there who have not been with us for a couple of weeks, we'll just kind of bring you up to speed with what's going on. I usually try to kind of give them a little bit of up. I was getting some interference there. It sounded like...
My apologies, Mike. I think we're good.
I think for their moment there, I thought I was being electrocuted, but...
Sounded like it.
Oh, that's all good. Anyway, so it's been kind of a busy few weeks. We're kind of wrapping up the fundraising season right now, and I just got back from Hawaii about 2.5 hours ago. So it was an early morning at DFW. I didn't even know people were up at that hour. And, I'm used to seeing people getting on planes at 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning. I'm not used to coming off of an airplane at 4 o'clock in the morning. But it was a full day. And the reason I bring that up is it was one of our bigger clients, which is Ducks Unlimited. And I know you're familiar with Ducks Unlimited. Ducks Unlimited probably has 500,000 members. It's a nonprofit that concentrates on conservation, water rights, easements, protecting the water tables and the grasslands, and then also habitat management. So I've been with them for about, I don't know, going on 20, 25 years, but we've been doing the auction on behalf of Ducks Unlimited for their national convention about the last 10 years. And so we had a big event. People were going, why are you going to, how many ducks are in Hawaii? And but from what I understand, much like other organizations, much like the National Auctioneer Association, they pick different places to go, and about every 20 years they go to Hawaii, and I think it's just kind of something they want to do. And a good friend of mine, Rogers Hoyt from down in Uvalde, Texas, is the outgoing president of the organization. He's now the chair. Great guy, and been a part of that organization for a long time. And then we've got another great friend. A little shout out to Doug Schoenrock from Tennessee, formerly Tennessee, now Alabama. And Doug will be going in as the president of Ducks Unlimited on the national level next year in Orlando. So that's where our next convention is going to be. So we're kind of wrapping up the fundraising season. I think we've got one more fundraiser before we call it a year until the fall sessions, and that all starts again, and people are going to know about that. But today, specifically, we want to talk about Cody Shelley. And Cody, I'm just going to take this from the very beginning.
Okay.
And you live outside of Tulsa. How long have you been up there?
I've just lived there about 5 years. I grew up in southwestern Oklahoma around Duncan Lawton area, but moved up there to be closer to a major airlines where I could get flown in and out. And then about that time I shifted in my career, and now I'm driving again. So
living out in the country is a wonderful thing.
It is.
Until you realize I'm going to actually have to get on airplanes and go somewhere. We lived on a farm, a family farm, many, many years ago, and I'm always talking about buying a place out in the country, but the problem is I don't have time to go to a place in the country, and if I were on the farm or on the ranch or on whatever property it is, it's getting back to catch those 5 o'clock in the morning flights that catch up with you. So tell me a little bit about when you were growing up as a kid in Oklahoma, were you always interested in being an auctioneer, or is this something that, I mean, where did this come from?
I think I've always been interested in being an auctioneer, just strictly from the standpoint of coming from an agricultural family. My dad raised and trained horses. Grandpa raced horses and was at every goat and chicken auction that we could get to on the weekends, and traveled with him a lot doing that, and gave me a hope of wanting to do it, but wasn't really my passion at all. I had really wanted to rodeo for a living. That was what I was going to do. I was going to be a world champion, and rodeoed through college, got scholarships and got a college degree because of rodeo, and it enabled me to get where I'm at now. But my path changed once I had to start paying bills of my own, and wanted to provide for me and a family also. So those things kind of changed, priorities differed.
There seems to be a common denominator with a lot of people who would like to be in rodeo. And it's like you have this window of time, you have that opportunity because you're young and you have family support, and then the reality does hit, okay, this is great. However, the checkbook is getting leaner, and it's harder to make a living doing that. So
right, a lot of people say if you want to be a millionaire rodeoing, you might as well start with $2 million. So that's a good way to become a millionaire if you want to rodeo for a living.
I like that. That's real good. So tell me about your folks, and tell me about who they are.
My dad raced and trained horses for several different people. Showed horses, calf horses, and team roping horses. Mom's always been a school teacher. And then we moved to Pennsylvania for some time. When I was 11, 12 years old, moved back to the southwest part of the state there in Duncan, and my dad started shoeing horses there. He's a farrier, and Mom found a K-8 school out in the country and has been there for 15 years probably. She's getting closer to retirement, she tells me all the time, but no. And then I went to college with aspirations of being an auctioneer at that point. I kind of thought that's what I wanted to do. In high school rodeo, there was a few auctioneers there, car auctioneers, and I thought that was cool. Didn't know anything about it, but I thought that was cool. My plan was to work during the week and then rodeo on the weekends, because I could go to work and come home, but
it had to be weaned.
Yes. And they gave some guidance and some help. And then graduated college in 2012. Came to auction school in 2011, so I kind of knew what I was wanting to do. But graduated college in 2012 and was lucky enough to get a few jobs not long after that in the auto auction business. With still, and probably still today, wanting to be in the agricultural based business, whether it be in cattle or horses, and fortunate enough to get to do a few of those too.
So what was your major in college?
Business management.
Okay.
And that's my mom's degree. That's what I was going to rodeo. Remember?
Yeah, I was waiting to hear.
That was Mom's degree. She wanted that degree, so we finished it and got it for her. So.
Mm-hmm. And where did you go to college?
Started in Vernon, Texas.
Texas.
2-year school there, super rodeo school. If you want to rodeo, you can go there because you can go to class and still rodeo, and the main focus there is rodeo.
Yeah.
And then went to Southwestern Oklahoma State in Weatherford. And ended up graduating from there.
Yeah, it's really funny how often Vernon, Texas comes up in conversations I have. It doesn't matter where I am. I can be sitting in Los Angeles and talking to somebody, and we're talking about a ranch that somebody visited, and my great-grandparents are buried in Vernon.
Really?
And my parents were actually married in Vernon, which is weird, because they never lived there. It was just like, where do you want to get married? Oh, I don't know. Let's stop here. There's a roadside park. I don't know.
Yeah, not much more than a roadside park in Vernon.
I know. So you, who were some of your early influences in the auto auction, or just auctions in general? I mean, if you were just picking a name or two of people that you watched that you admired or thought, that's really a great chant.
During the high school rodeo years, John Gary Collins was somebody that was pretty instrumental, and he would spend a little time with me. Of course, he worked all week, and that was his vacation. He didn't want to talk to a kid about auctioneer, and he was done for the week. You know, he was on his vacation, but he helped a lot, and he helped introduce me. He basically handed me off to Casey Enlow, a protege of his. But I can remember that when I kind of decided that's what I wanted to do, I recorded the NCHA cutting futurity back when we had VHS, and I would love to go back and watch it now and listen and just kind of see what I used to do 10, 12 years ago, but I can't find a VHS player. Still got the tape.
Do you know you can order one?
Yeah, I may have to do that.
I have one.
Do you?
Of course.
A new one or an old one?
Yeah, it's brand new.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, if I can just figure out how to run it.
Right, I understand. But, of course, the three guys sell on there, Don Green, Steve Friskup, and Justin Holmberg. I listened to that every night. I didn't watch TV. That's what played, and I fell asleep. And it sounds cliche, but that's what I did.
Well, the more you hear either a professional doing it or seeing it, whether it's through video, audio, or in person, I do believe that the more you see and you pick up the nuances, you pick up the feelings, and it's as much style as anything, because there's a lot of style in what we do, as you know. So are you doing some of the purebred stuff, or what are you venturing into there?
Yes, I didn't come from never showed cattle in my life, and wasn't on any judging team or anything, and that seems to be the common path that a lot of purebred cattle auctioneers take is through that, which that's what they studied. For good reason, that they know more about them than the average person. But yeah, I have numerous purebred bull sales and female sales, and have gained several over the last few years, just attempting to be relevant in the business. I've got a quarter horse sale this weekend, actually, at Woodward, Oklahoma, Renee Cudd's sale, and gaining a few of those over time. So it's taken some time, but it's something I want to do, so I'm going to stay the course.
So what are your aspirations in that? How far do you want to go into that? Would you quit everything else if that opportunity came about to where that's all you sold? Would you do that?
No, I don't think for me, and that's something I want to make sure I do, is stay diversified, and that's the main reason for wanting in any of those, whether it be the quarter horse sales or thoroughbred sales or the purebred cattle, just a different avenue that I have the ability to go work and provide for my family, because it's ever changing. It's changed. I think I tried to add it up the other day when I went to work at Wichita, Kansas. I think it's been about 7 years in the auto auction business, and they were just adding lanes at every auto auction in the country, and it was perfect timing on my part for being young and wanting to get in. I had a lot of opportunity, but I see some people now trying to get in the auto auction business, and cars are shorter, and there's other avenues to sell them than just at wholesale auto auction, and I keep thinking, well, they're going to get an opportunity, and I look back at my opportunity, and it wasn't easy, but there was more opportunity than there is now. So that's, who knows where we'll be in another 7 years. So that's kind of my take on, I want a finger in every bit of it. That way, if something does change, I still am able to go do something else. 20,
30 years ago, there was a lot of debate in the industry, and I was on a lot of committees with the national and the state, everyone was trying to figure out where the business was going to go, And so the big debate that I ran into was whether you should specialize or whether you should diversify. And for a while there, it was like, get all in. If you're going to be in this business, pick one, stick with it, either be the man or be the woman or whatever it is. And then, as you know, because of technology, the game has changed dramatically in the last 15 years, and that we keep seeing experiments with the major auto auctions. So give me the average week for you. So here we are. It's Monday. What happens tomorrow?
Monday's my catch-up day normally. Monday's when I try to spend some time with my wife, and we generally run to Tulsa on Mondays and run errands and make sure we've got dry cleaning for the week, and anything that didn't get done the previous 3 weeks, put it on that list, and try to catch up. We're gone a lot of weekends. If I'm not working, we're at a junior rodeo with my little boy, and my little girl's 3, and she's starting to want to be active. We have to take her pony everywhere we go with us now, which is a lot easier than her running around. And we know if she's on her pony, she's not going anywhere. But Monday's catch-up day. Tuesday I'll start the auction week in Dallas. Have one sale on Tuesday in Dallas, and then Wednesday will be 2 sales here in Dallas, one in the morning, one that afternoon. Thursday, 1 sale here in Dallas, and then head back home, get to be home on Thursday night, and then 2 out of auctions Friday in Tulsa, and then either we're heading to a junior rodeo or I'm headed to work somewhere on Friday evening.
So what are some of the companies you're working for?
Work for Mannheim here in Dallas, work for Odessa here in Dallas, and then Odessa also in Tulsa, and then an independent auto auction there in Tulsa, Z66. And it's an afternoon sale there in Tulsa on Friday.
So when you came to auction school, what do you remember the most about auction school?
You telling me to slow down. No, it was, I thought I was ready to come to get a license. That's why I was coming. I was coming to get my 80 hours in so I could get a license, and was already attempting to be an auctioneer, a bid caller, let's call it that. I was no auctioneer and still working to be a true auctioneer, but the business side of it was what I didn't even think, didn't consider that we would spend any time doing that. I thought it was just going to be strictly based on bid calling ability and developing a chant, and you know, and we spent more time being able to go into business when you left than about bid calling. It doesn't, if you can't get an auction to call bids at, it doesn't do you any good to be a bid caller. And that was probably the biggest surprise for me, was just the business side of it. That, and you telling me to slow down. I do remember that.
I've been known to tell
Yeah.
a lot of champion auctioneers to slow down.
Yeah, I remember that.
Well, you know, the thing is, we've always said, and for the people who are watching that don't know anything about auctioneering, I mean, literally last night I was sitting in Los Angeles in the airport and having dinner, and we were talking to the lady that was waiting on us, and she goes, I've never been to an auction, but I'd love to go to an auction. So I think there's way more people who've never been to an auction than have been to an auction, and
Absolutely.
they don't understand. They don't understand because they always make fun of the fast talk.
Right.
And but it's like we always say in school, you know, speed comes, but you need as much clarity as you can get. And if they cannot understand your numbers and they can't understand the what the chant is for, it's not just going so fast that nobody understands what you're saying.
Right, and I just went fast. I had no foundation to lean back on, and that's, school slowed me down. And I can remember I left there and had an auction already scheduled, a Calcutta for a pretty large event, and I can remember just thinking how easy things were when I slowed down, and I had a foundation to stand on at that point, rather than just go as fast as I could, as long as I could, until the wheels fell off, you know. and
Yeah.
So it slowed me down enough to get some basics and a foundation to stand on.
Sure. So how did you decide to, what was the first contest you got into?
First contest was an Oklahoma State contest. I was a rookie. I entered the rookie division at Oklahoma, encouraged by John Gary Collins to enter. I think that would have been my freshman year of college, so it would have been 08, 09, something
Okay.
like that.
And so what happened?
Won the contest, and from that point forward, everything was easy. I was ready to run and go, and I was ready to enter the pro. Went back the next year, entered the pro, made the finals, and then I had to answer an interview question. And
How'd that go?
I was slowed down again. Once again, I was slowed down. But have been to the Oklahoma contest several times and made the finals. Just haven't had the opportunity to win, and having known now wish I knew then what I know now. I put work in front of a lot of things for a long time, and I'm still, I want to work, but I'm trying to, I made the decision if I could get a job, I was going to miss the contest because I was going to go get a check.
Yep.
And this point, I wish I would have went more.
Yep.
I went and watched this year because I couldn't be there on Saturday due to work. I wish I would have went more and learned more and met more people.
Yep.
And at this point, I'm obligated to these people. I've been working for them for several years, and I don't want to take off to go to the contest. But hindsight is 2020. But I'm trying to get more involved in national and state and any association I can, just because I do see the worth at this point. And I guess being an auto auctioneer, I was running so fast that I didn't notice the small things that I should have picked up on a long time ago.
Well, I think when you're young, you either migrate towards the associations or you're disconnected from them. I've just watched it now for 42 years, and I see guys that could have been at a certain level or could have shifted gears and sold any. I really admire the auctioneers who can call a car sale on Saturday or during the week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, whatever, and then turn around and do a fundraiser that night and be every bit as good. Because they know how to handle their crowd,
and that's kind of what I want my focus to be. And none of this I wouldn't be in any situation that I have an opportunity to do anything or this if it wasn't from the auto auctions. I mean, that's completely my main source of income and always will be probably. But I've learned. I've had the ability to be on the microphone so many days a week for so long that I've been able to learn a lot. Trial and error. Sure. But no, the auto auction business is been great for me and my family, and is going to continue to be. Like I said, there's a lot of changing times right now, and everything's changed in the last 7 years, and it's not going away by any means. It just I want to be ready for anything.
Here's what I know: if you don't own it, then you don't control it.
Yes, sir.
And you don't control what you're doing. And so as we continue to use the technology, I don't believe that the auto auctioneer or the cattle auctioneer is going to go anywhere anytime soon, because there's just a certain thing that goes with it. A lot of it's relationships, ranchers and people that own farms that have a lot of cattle. They like that interaction. Most of them, I'd say the vast majority, were in FFA when they were kids. There's a FFA Alumni Association auction every year at Louisville or Indianapolis, which our company has done and for many years. I think it's notably American. It's an American thing. And, back 40, 50 years ago, you either drove a Ford, a Chevy, or a Dodge, but things changed. And so now people drive all kinds of things, and you really notice it when you travel a lot, as you well know. It's kind of like these classic car sales. Most of the auctioneers I know that are worth their salt, they all wanted to be at Barrett Jackson, or they all wanted to be at RM, or they all wanted to be up in Indiana selling up there. And from a distance, it all looks great, and I'm sure it is if you have that position. Plus, you create your own team, and there's a camaraderie. People don't realize that being an auctioneer that works with the same people all the time, it's almost like being a band. It really is, especially if you're selling businesses or companies, and you're in a town for a week or two or something like that. But it's just like when we go to Mannheim, which I've seen you there forever, and most we probably trained over half the people that work at Mannheim here in Dallas, and it's there's kind of a fraternal relationship,
Yeah, as a matter of fact, speaking of Barrett Jackson, I got to go this January for the first time. Was asked to come out there, and it is a fraternal thing. It's that's a brotherhood, and maybe, like I said, that's kind of what I'd been missing from my state association or national association. Just I wasn't getting involved enough. But yeah, it was a unbelievable experience. I've watched it. The same thing as like the NCHA cutting fraternity that I mentioned earlier. I would it's recorded on my DVR. That's what I did. I listened and watched, and to get to walk in that first day, that was really cool.
Sometimes you need to be pushed. Sometimes we're lucky enough to have somebody push us to get involved. I'll be real honest with you. I joined both the national and the state association immediately after auction school, and so there isn't a year that I haven't been a member, and I'm a life member of the national now. But the funny thing is involvement. The involvement, I did go to my first national convention in the early 80s, like 1983. I think it was at the Shamrock Hilton in Houston, which was an iconic hotel. And what's interesting is I still remember so much of it. It's like a film in my mind. I can think of who was the president. I remember how I was treated. That was it was in our home state, so the state association was real involved with it. But you really, when you do that, when you get that involved, now at the same time, you're looking at, well, can I really take off that Friday, Saturday? And it's hard. It's a hard thing to do, especially if you have a family and you're trying to rack it up, and you don't want to not be there because you don't want to give that other guy a chance to take your job.
Well, and that's, I kind of tried to make the decision in January to start investing in my future, so to start getting involved. And there's work will be there, but it won't be there if I don't learn. So I just that's something I'm trying to do now. Is be involved, and I want to be involved for the World Auto contest and things of that nature. Just Kevin McLaughlin writes a letter to the winner of the World Auto contest, and I won't tell you everything it says in it, but it's just it's tough to read and not get emotional about, because he's so emotional about it. But it didn't really dawn on me until that point that there are people looking at me, and I have an example to set, and I have an ability to influence the auto auction career contest. And anybody wanting to get in the business. So I have that ability now, which I turned 30 the day before the contest. So that's a really mature letter for me, who's been blowing and going, but really been trying to slow down in the last 4 or 5 months. Since January I made that decision, and so have the ability to help at this point. I don't feel worthy of helping anybody, but it's my duty at this point to help and grow the auto industry and be there for anybody who wants to be in it.
I had a guy call me, I guess last Monday or Tuesday. No, it was probably Tuesday or Wednesday, somewhere in there. And he tried to contact me about a year or two ago. And you know who Pat Long is. He's been a friend of mine for about 45 years. And so this guy, he had his auctioneer's license, and he'd gone to auction school, back in the 80s, and he's kind of fallen out of the cracks, and he wanted to work with an auctioneer, and he was calling me to see if I would work with him one-on-one, and I told him, I said, my biggest problem is I just don't have the time. I don't have time to take a day or 2 or 3 to work with anybody. That's almost like a job, and I did give him a recommendation. But you know what? When people when they say, could you work with me? Or do you know who will work with me? Let me tell you, watching other auctioneers all the time, we can't make somebody go to an auction. I can't, as somebody who's wanting to develop their chant, I can't make you go watch a farm auction in Idabel, Oklahoma. I can't send you to Mannheim. I can't get you. That requires effort. But there's enough video now. There's enough audio and video on the internet. It's like private instruction. You may not be getting the same reaction. You may not receiving an immediate response to what you're doing. But I can guarantee you, if I sat down long enough and watched the best auctioneers in the world over and over and over, I'm going to pick up some nuances. I don't want to be a parrot that is repeating what one auctioneer does. I mean, there's one Ralph Wade.
Absolutely.
There only needs to be one Ralph Wade.
Right.
So,
and that's kind of what that was my mindset on listening to those three guys that were selling at the Cutting Horse Futurity is a blend of all three of those, and picking up something from Casey Enlow and picking up something from John Gary and trying to make it my own. And I spent, pardon me, I spend a lot of time trying to figure out what everybody else's chain is. I did it for the longest time. I still do it. I want to know. I want to break it down so I can put it into mine. And a person that would have been probably one of the first influences, Randy Woodward, helped me with my chant more than anybody. And Randy's from northeastern Oklahoma and has run a lot of cattle for a long time and just hadn't had the ability to travel like a lot of guys do. But he sells a heritage place, quarter horse sale, and sells several car sales now. And he was it's almost a game to he and I that and we still call each other. We talk to each other weekly and we'll attempt to break something down. But that's just kind of the way that it worked for me. And not that it has worked, but I was fortunate enough to for them to select me as the champion, I guess.
Sure.
So at this point, it's done something for me.
how many contests have you been in as far as the World Auto Auction Championship?
I was trying to think about that. My first contest was in Waco, and made the finals in the team.
And I was a judge.
Yeah, that's the only way I made the finals, I think. Made the finals in the team, and once again, just like Oklahoma, boy, I was ready. I was going to be the champion the next year. It was quickly humbled. Didn't make the finals for 2 years, and then skipped a year. I think I've been 6 times. This was my 6th time, I believe. And when Casey Enlow got to give me the trophy, that's what he and I were talking about. Even before, on the way up there, he missed 18 times, and I just don't understand how. He and I have talked about it a lot. He went 18 times and then won the contest.
Yeah. Well, I have those humbling stories. When I was working, and I know you're getting ready to enter into the International Auctioneer Championship coming up in New Orleans. And that'll be coming up pretty quick because we're only about a month and a half, maybe a month.
36 days. Just got my email
really?
while I was sitting in the
You got it down to the days and the minutes.
36 days.
36 days.
Yeah, 36 days. I have to answer an interview question.
I just remember in 96, these are the highs and lows. So I remember my first contest was probably in 92, 93 in Omaha. And that's the year that Spanky won. And he'd won the state in June and won the IAC in July. That happens every once in a while where somebody can win back to back from their state to the international. And I just remember in 96 I took 3rd, and I thought, man, I am there. There is no doubt in my mind next year, I'm going to be close. And then the next year I didn't make the cut. And I always tell students or auctioneers that want to be in contest, never skip, because the year you skip may have been the year you'd have won. So in 96 I took 3rd, 97 didn't place, 98 won. So, and I can still remember, and I've relayed this story before, and Paul Baer, of course, who's behind the World Auto Auction Championship, and I've been good friends, and we've served on the boards together. But I can still remember sitting at the Gaylord Hotel in Nashville, and there was about 6 or 7 auctioneers. All of them were either World Auto Auction Champions or livestock champions, but there was not. I was the only one that hadn't won anything big, and I had just failed to make the cut, which makes you feel about an inch and a half, right? And so I got Paul sitting on my right, and we've got Shane Ratliff sitting there, and we've got Neil Davis sitting there, and it was kind of a who's who of who had, except me. And I just remember, it was a very, and it was probably 2:00 in the morning because we're just killing time. Just one of those moments in time that you never forget because you're with this certain group of people that you'll probably never sit in the same way again. You might, but probably not. And I just remember Paul saying, he said, "You're a good auctioneer." He said, "When it's time, you get the right set of judges, you're going to win." and then the next year won. And so I relay that to anybody that's watching this that's an auctioneer, and I tell people all the time, don't miss a contest, because that contest can change your career. It can put you in places that you would never be and never have the opportunity to be. So, we're hoping that you do real well in the contest coming up. Tell me about the contest, and you were, I guess it was in Denver.
Mm-hmm. In January.
Tell me about that.
That was the Mile High contest in Denver, which I'd been to the rodeo at Denver before, and that's kind of why I wanted to go back. Had a lot of success at the rodeo at Denver, and wanted to go back. I was going to go watch rodeo and things, and was a big long trip playing with the wife. Just that was the reason for going to the contest. They opened it to anybody, and like I said, I made a decision to try to start competing and getting involved, and so I entered, and nothing went as planned. One of the kids was sick. I can't remember exactly what the situation was, but off I go to Denver, switch my flights just flying out that morning, and went up there and was fortunate enough to win that contest. And they put on an excellent contest. I think there was around 45 contestants. The prize money was good. That was enticing also. It's a great contest. Sold 2 items and then came back in the finals and sold 3. They took 5 back to the finals. It was right there where they sell the Sale of Champions. The crowd was big. It was. I was glad I went, and it kind of made me want to start competing again. I did it. I enjoyed it. But that was in January. So then the car contest was just the second week of May.
Before we start talking about what your plans are, who would you say, based on the World Auto Auction Championship and also what you saw in Denver, and just in your work, but since you've already won this, who would you say right off the bat kind of spark in your mind some people that you see as at the top of the heap when it comes to potential winners of contests like that?
Matt Morvek. He won second the last 2 years.
Matt Morvak is a great young auctioneer. The funny thing is, back in the old days, his dad and I used to compete against each other.
Yeah, his brother Trev is outstanding. Blake McDaniel, he's going to get a ring. He's won the team a couple times. Woody Woodruff, I got to work with him in Birmingham for quite some time. It's making me think I don't know how I won. Naming those guys, they're flawless. But just happened to be my time. So
well, you obviously had a good run, and you had good judges.
Yeah,
whenever you win, you had really good judges.
The best judges they've had yet. And I was gonna turn around and go home. I got to the airport. I booked a late flight because I wanted to be home when I flew back in on Saturday.
Yep.
Once again, gonna go on vacation with my wife. Spend Monday, go to Charleston. Something else came up. She stayed home, took care of the kids and all the animals and things, and so I booked a late flight out of Tulsa, thinking it's spring. This is probably not a good idea, but worked in Dallas and drove home, took a shower, grabbed the bag she had packed, and headed to the airport. And got there and got through security. Got an update. American Airlines flight's been delayed.
Yeah.
Like, oh, they can't delay that because my connection's way too tight. Look, and I'm like, that's not going to work. And I had traveling to Atlanta and Birmingham for about a year. I figured out how to manipulate the system and get through the airport. So I immediately just left. Everybody went to the gate agent, and I left and went downstairs and went to the American Airlines Center up front, and they put me on Delta to Atlanta. I knew if I could get to Atlanta, I could drive. Yep. And flight was delayed. Wasn't going to make the connection from Atlanta to Charleston. Well, then, so I make it there. I'm good. I'm going to drive. It's going to be all night drive. So I run to the next gate to Charleston, get there. Well, you're not on here. Well, I understand it was overbooked, but since it's been delayed, people missed, can you put me on? Nope. The pilot said, I'll race you. So he was standing there at the gate, and he said, I'll race you. And I said, well, let me get my car first. So I went and got a rent car and drove. I got there at 4:45 and took a shower, and
Yep.
was there at 6:30. It was a long day, but probably was more rewarding doing it that way. But and I didn't want really even care to make it there to compete. I had talked to 4 or 5 buddies that week. Hey, buddy, can't wait to see you. Excited to see you. And I was like, I'm not going to get to see them for another year because there's a lot of people I don't get to see other than at the contest.
Yep.
So I was like, nope, I'm going. I'm going to make it. So I rented a car and drove and got there. And strictly not for the reason of competing, but just that brotherhood that you talk about.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's just that's what made me go.
No, there's nothing like it. There really, I mean, in our industry, yeah, there's a lot of lone rangers. There's some auctioneers that are they're on their own island. They don't really mix. They don't go to events. They just go do their thing. They get locked and loaded and make their living. And when it's over with, they disappear. You don't see them at all, and they don't even want to talk to anybody.
Right.
And but I'm just the opposite of that. I like to be around like-minded people, and I like to see people that love what we do. Just love what we do. I don't think there's a greater industry for enjoying what you do. I get asked that all the time, every day. They say you must really enjoy your work. And it's a cliche that if you enjoy what you do, it's not work. And but my main thing is I watched my grandparents work hard. They worked really hard, crazy hard. Once you watch somebody work on a farm and raise crops or work for the Soil Conservation Service, digging post holes around private lakes all over the United States, or working in the oil field, what we do, we got a pretty good gig. If you can be on a microphone and selling something, that's not post hole digging.
Absolutely. My dad, that brings back memories. There's been 100 times I've said, hey, show me how to shoe that horse. Show me how to do that. Nope, you're not going to do this. And he still to this day will not, absolutely not. If something's got to be done around there, he does it. It's not an option for him. It never was. He wasn't going to let me pick a horse's foot up because he didn't want me to work that hard. He wanted me to go do something else. And I probably could have fallen in behind him and been just fine, but I didn't really want to work that hard anyway. I just kind of wanted to know how to do it. There was never any part of me that aspired to be a farrier. I can assure you that.
Well, I always talk about living on a dairy farm when I was a kid, and people don't realize I didn't live there that long. It was the period of time I was there that left the greatest impression. That it's really where I got my basis for working hard, because I was around working people. And after you put hay up in a barn and we didn't have the equipment that we have today.
Right.
You're not rolling bales. Back then it was square bales and it was twine, and you were doing something if you actually had steel, where you could bale your stuff. And I think about all that stuff, and it was a different time. We're talking back in the 60s, and but that one period of time was probably the most influential in my life, and probably living in those circumstances with your parents, obviously had the same kind of impact.
Yeah, it did, and I got to make this statement and don't know where it came from, but it wasn't because I was not prepared to win, but I got to kind of honor them a little bit when I won, and they allowed me to say something, and I've thought it reflected a lot on it since I said it. But my mom and dad always put me in good situations, no matter what. They weren't in the auction business. Like I said, my dad would buy a few horses at auction, didn't sell many at auction. And mom was a school teacher, but they never allowed me to be in a bad situation. And that's kind of what I go back and reflect on, is just they work all day, every day. My dad's the type of person, well, let's go in and sit down. Nope, we're not going in and sitting down. You go in and sit down, that's fine. But, I mean, he'll go pick rocks up.
He's looking for something to do.
Move them to a different spot because he's not going to go in and sit down. But I guess a different generation of people too, and that was just him. That's what he's used to doing, is working hard.
Do you have any brothers and sisters?
No. I always told my mom she couldn't have done any better, so she better quit. Yeah, she was in labor for a little over 20 hours with me, so
wow.
she was done.
She earned it.
She had enough.
Yeah. What about you're married?
Yep.
So
yep. Wife Ashley, 2 kids, Jacob and Bexley, 9 and 3. Little boy Rodeo's little girl. She
Won't be far behind.
Oh boy, we're in trouble.
You're in trouble.
Yes, very much so. But wife, I don't allow anybody to count the horses at our house because I don't want to know.
Wow.
But there's too many. She's going to listen to this and be mad that I said there's too many. But no, she stays busy with them and the kids.
So do you have some land up there?
Not much. Just 9 acres there. But we've built a horse facility there that we're fixing to sell. We're relocating the Burleson area. Just about 10 acres outside of Burleson. Mm-hmm. And that's all I ever wanted was thousands of acres and hundreds of cows. And I'm looking for the time to take care of any of that at this point.
Yeah. 10 acres is a lot when you're not there.
My parents came up this weekend. We mowed and weeded and did things and of course the rains have been crazy. But I was told my dad last night, I was like, we've worked 2 days straight just getting back to even. Mm-hmm. And so 10 acres is plenty for me at this point.
So how old are you now?
Just turned 30 in May.
30 in May. Wow. I can't remember 30. Where do you see yourself in 5 years?
Hopefully in Burleson, Texas still. I don't want to move again. Every time I move, something changes, and I'm ready for some consistency. I want to be a business owner. Mm-hmm. And I think the dad in me is starting to see different things than the 20-year-old Cody. I want something for them as a contract auctioneer with whatever avenue it may be, whether it be cars, cattle, horses. I can't really gift that ability. I can help, but I can't give that job to either of my children, and they may not either one of them want to be in the auction business. But at least I'll have a business that has a book of business. That if they decide to join, I would like to have a family auction company if that's the way they want to go. But I want to be a business owner in the next 5 years.
You know, my roommate back in 1983 at the National Auctioneers Association convention was an auctioneer by the name of Danny Green. I don't know if you know Danny Green.
One of the greatest auctioneers there is.
Yeah, and so when we were young, back in the 70s, H.B. Green was his father, and if you lived in Dallas-Fort Worth back in the early to mid-70s and probably late 60s, H.B. Green was like a furniture store deluxe, and they got in the auction. They started having auctions, and you know, he and I worked together, and he would sell furniture, and he did a lot of furniture auctions. That was something that the family did, so he felt pretty obligated to be the furniture auctioneer. He didn't like it, but he did it. And then over time, it transitioned, and we sold antiques together with Joe Small. Danny would come over. A lot of people don't realize that Danny ever worked for Joe Small, but he did. And but he was learning. He was learning about business, and that's what I saw about, Danny was one of those guys that in the 80s or in the 70s rather, he was driving a Mercedes. He wasn't driving the pickup. He was driving a Mercedes. And I remember when he met his wife Chris, about that time they got together, and I was liquidating a bunch of Lowe's stores. I think I had 14 or 16 Lowe's stores. Tulsa was the biggest store, but from Tulsa down to Texas and all these stores, Lowe's was leaving. They came in, tried to make it work. It didn't work. But so they were getting ready to build a house, and so Chris would come to all the auctions, and she was not Danny, but Chris, and she knew more about construction stuff and buying windows, and most everything I guess that they built their house with came from these Lowe's stores. But I just remember I thought, well, it's pretty interesting. She's super sharp. She comes from a pretty well-to-do family, and Danny married well, and then they started having kids. And today, Danny Green is probably, and of course he sold Keeneland for many years, and a lot of very high production horses. And but if you look at a guy that took what he learned in the auction business and turned it into a family business, they're one of the Danny and his family and his boys especially are some of the number one of the largest roofing companies in the United States, maybe the world. I don't know. I know that they repair the roofs on stadiums, domes, and then they do a lot of residential roofing. So they've built a little empire. And so every time I see Danny, I saw Danny came in and judged our IAC contest about 2 or 3 years ago. It's always good to see him. But when you start looking at people that are successful, there's certain traits that they have, and the fact that you're thinking about trying to leave a legacy for your kids and your family. You might look at what Danny Green has done, and he's up in Oklahoma City.
Yeah, I've gotten the opportunity to work with Danny a couple times, and that was kind of one of those star moments that, is this real? To get to work with him.
Well, he's got a smooth chant. He's just got the smoothest chance, and of course he sold $1 million horses, and we actually show that video at auction school now of him selling one of his horses. And
I bet I've watched it 150 times.
Well, that's good. You just keep watching that. You might be selling those $1 million horses on a regular basis. He tried to get me into being his pedigree guy. And so I did read pedigrees for him down in San Antonio and up at I think up at Heritage. And of course he learned his skills from Keith Babb, and of course Keith Babb learned from Ike Hamilton. And it's just, we all have those mentors that help us establish and become a part of those teams that get to do these auctions. So you've already worked for a lot of great auctioneers.
Yeah, I've been really fortunate, and wouldn't have been able to do it without a lot of guidance and a lot of help.
Good. Well, and you and I are getting ready to leave here, and we're getting ready to go shoot a television show, and we kind of have to keep it under wraps because they don't want everybody in the world to know what the show is because of some production, copywriting, trademarking for this particular program. But we're gonna go have some auction school, and you're gonna be working with me today. And Barrett Bray, our IAC champion, and this is pretty cool for America's Auction Academy, formerly Texas Auction Academy, which is on your diploma. Mm-hmm. Having 2 champions. If we could have pulled off the livestock deal, if we had influenced enough LMA guys. We're not I wouldn't say we are the number one livestock marketing association type auctioneer because it's a special talent. It's something different. If you're going to do cattle sales and you're going to do those barn sales, it's a little different breed. It's a little different deal. Yeah. But now a great auctioneer can sell anything. Absolutely. And we've seen some that have been able to win the rings for all 3.
There's been a few.
Yeah. But here again, selling cars is one thing. Working in a sale barn is something very different,
My hat goes off to those guys. The amount of hour, I can't sit still that long.
Yeah.
I mean, they the long nights. I mean, sometimes past midnight and 8-hour shifts, and I guess if that's the path I would have chosen, that's what I would have done. But those are marathon runners for sure.
They earn every dollar
Absolutely.
They get. Yeah, it's a rough road. It's a rough road.
Absolutely.
Well, look, Cody, I appreciate you being on. We look forward to watching you develop and grow and become even bigger and better. And good luck with the IAC next month in New Orleans. It's 30 how many days?
36. I got their email while I was sitting in the lobby.
Well, that's great. So we're going to go over and work with some students that'll be on TV. And we just want to thank you for being with us and making the trip down from Tulsa. And we'll say thanks. And on behalf of everybody that's part of this show today here in Dallas at Lincoln Center, the part of the Mike McGavel Jones Show, we appreciate each and every one of you. God bless you. We look forward to seeing you next time. We'll have another great show for you. Until then, we bid you adieu.